The morning sun filtered through the delicate lace curtains of the small rustic home. A soft breeze carried the scent of blooming flowers, a perfect prelude to what was meant to be the happiest day of her life. Anna, a kind-hearted young woman, stood before a mirror, her reflection adorned in a flowing white gown. Her smile was radiant but tinged with nerves. Today she would walk down the aisle and begin a new chapter surrounded by family and friends. By her side sat her loyal companion Max, a dog who had been her steadfast friend for over a decade. Max was no ordinary pet. He was her confidant, protector, and unwavering source of comfort. From the moment Anna had brought him home as a puppy, their bond had been unbreakable. Through every high and low, Max had been there, his presence a constant reminder of love and loyalty. As the day's preparations unfolded, Max's demeanor seemed unusually somber. While the house buzzed with excitement, Max remained still, his head resting on his paws and his eyes fixed on Anna. She noticed his quiet behavior, but brushed it off as a reaction to the commotion. "You're my rock, Max," Anna said softly, kneeling to stroke his fur. "You've been with me through everything. Don't worry. Today's going to be perfect." Max's tail thumped gently against the floor, but his gaze didn't waver. It was as if he carried a weight he couldn't express, his normally spirited nature replaced by an air of quiet contemplation. The guests began to arrive, their laughter and chatter filling the air as they settled into the outdoor venue nestled behind the house. The setting was picturesque. Rows of chairs adorned with white ribbons, a wooden arch draped with flowers, and the soft hum of music creating a serene atmosphere. Everything was ready. Anna stood at the back door, taking a deep breath as she prepared for her grand entrance. Her father, a proud yet emotional man, extended his arm to escort her down the aisle. But as Anna took her first step, Max moved. He positioned himself directly in front of her, blocking her path. "Max, what are you doing?" Anna asked, her voice filled with gentle confusion. She tried to step around him, but he shifted again, firmly planting himself between her and the door. His behavior, so unlike his usual obedient nature, startled everyone nearby. Guests turned to look, their murmurs filling the air as the music paused. Anna's father leaned down to coax Max away. "Come on, buddy," he said kindly. "Let's let her through." But Max wouldn't budge. His large, soulful eyes looked up at Anna, filled with something she couldn't quite place. Fear, sadness, desperation. The moment felt heavy, as though Max was trying to communicate something urgent. Anna knelt beside him, her hand trembling slightly as she stroked his fur. "Max," she whispered, her voice catching. "What's wrong?" For a moment time seemed to stand still. The vibrant energy of the wedding stilled, as all eyes focused on the bride and her dog. Max let out a soft, low whine, pressing his head into Anna's lap. It was then she noticed it. His heartbeat, strong and steady beneath her palm, seemed to echo her own. A connection, deep and profound, passed between them. Her father gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "Maybe we should pause for a moment," he suggested, his voice laced with concern. Anna hesitated, torn between the excitement of the day and the unshakable feeling that Max was trying to tell her something. She looked into his eyes, searching for an answer. What could possibly be troubling him on a day that should have been filled with joy? Anna's heart raced as she knelt before Max, her gown pooling around her like a soft wave. The guests watched in hushed silence, the joy of the occasion momentarily replaced with concern and curiosity. Her father exchanged uneasy glances with the officiant, but neither moved to intervene. This wasn't just a dog being stubborn, there was something deeper at play. Max pressed closer to Anna, his soft whine tugging at her emotions. She stroked his head gently, her mind spinning as she tried to make sense of his behavior. "Max," "What is it?" she whispered. "You're scaring me." Tears pricked the corners of her eyes as she studied him, his gaze, unwavering and filled with an intensity she'd never seen before, seemed to plead with her. It was as if he were asking her to pause, to listen, to feel. "Maybe he's nervous," her father offered, his voice low but uncertain. "He's not used to this kind of crowd." Anna shook her head. "No, it's more than that," she said. "He's trying to tell me something." Her fiancé, David, stepped forward from his place near the altar, concern etched across his face. He was a kind man, patient and understanding, and he had always admired the bond Anna shared with Max. "Is everything okay?" he asked gently. Anna looked up at him, her emotions threatening to spill over. "I don't know," she admitted. "He's never acted like this before." David crouched beside her, extending a hand toward Max. The dog hesitated, his body tensing slightly before leaning into Anna's side. It was clear where his trust lay, in the woman who had been his world for years. "We can wait," David said softly, his voice steady and reassuring. "Whatever's going on, we'll figure it out." The guests, sensing the gravity of the moment, remained patient and respectful. Some whispered among themselves, speculating about the dog's strange behavior. Others simply watched, their hearts aching for the bride and her loyal companion. A gentle breeze rustled through the trees, carrying the scent of flowers and fresh grass. Anna closed her eyes briefly, taking a deep breath to steady herself. She needed to trust Max, the same way he had trusted her so many times before. "All right," she said finally, standing and addressing the crowd. "I'm sorry, but we need to take a short break. I'll be back soon." Her father nodded, his protective instincts kicking in. "I'll let everyone know to take their seats and relax," he said, gesturing for the officiant to help calm the guests. Anna turned to David, her voice soft but firm. "I need a moment with Max, just the two of us." David nodded without hesitation. "Take all the time you need." With Max by her side, Anna walked toward a quieter part of the garden, away from the prying eyes of the crowd. The path was lined with blooming roses, their vibrant colors a sharp contrast to the storm of emotions swirling inside her. Max stayed close, his movements deliberate and purposeful, as if guiding her. When they reached a secluded bench, Anna sat down, her hands trembling as she rested them on her lap. Max sat in front of her, his body still, but his eyes brimming with emotion. For a long moment, they simply looked at each other, the bond between them speaking louder than words ever could. "I don't know what's wrong," Anna said finally, her voice breaking, "but I'll listen. I promise." Max let out a soft huff, his gaze dropping momentarily before returning to hers. Anna felt a pang in her chest, a mix of love and fear as she tried to decipher his actions. And then it hit her, a memory surfaced, vivid and raw. It was a stormy night years ago when Anna had been at her lowest. She'd been sitting on the floor of her bedroom, tears streaming down her face, overwhelmed by heartbreak and doubt. Max had been there curling up beside her, his presence a silent reminder that she wasn't alone. He had saved her that night, anchoring her in a moment when she felt like she might drift away. And now, as she sat in her wedding dress, she realized he was trying to do the same. "You think I'm making a mistake," she whispered, the realization cutting through her like a blade. "Is that it?" Max tilted his head slightly, his eyes soft but unwavering. It wasn't judgment she saw in his gaze, it was concern, a deep and unconditional love that spoke to her in ways she couldn't ignore. Anna's breath caught as doubts she hadn't allowed herself to confront began to surface. Was she rushing into this marriage? Had she overlooked something important in her eagerness to move forward? Max's actions, though wordless, forced her to confront what her heart had been too afraid to acknowledge. Tears filled her eyes as she reached out, wrapping her arms around Max's neck. "You've always known me better than anyone," she said, her voice trembling. "Even better than I know myself." Max let out a low, comforting whine, his body relaxing slightly as if sensing she was starting to understand. The weight of the moment pressed down on Anna, but it also brought clarity. She needed to trust her instincts, just as Max had trusted her every step of the way. The garden felt still, as if even nature had paused to give Anna the space to think. Max sat quietly at her feet, his steady presence grounding her in a whirlwind of emotions. Her hands rested in her lap, trembling as she processed the flood of doubts and memories swirling in her mind. Anna replayed every moment leading up to this day, her relationship with David, the planning, the expectations placed on her by family and friends. On the surface, everything had seemed perfect, but Max's unwavering actions had cracked open a truth she'd been too scared to face. "Max," she whispered, her voice trembling, "what are you trying to tell me?" The dog lifted his head, his deep, soulful eyes meeting hers. There was no judgment in his gaze, only love and concern, as if urging her to look deeper within herself. Anna exhaled shakily, realizing she needed to confront what she'd been avoiding for months. She thought about David. He was kind, patient, and supportive, everything she had told herself she wanted in a partner. But as she sat there, her heart ached with the realization that something was missing. It wasn't his fault, nor was it hers, but the connection she felt with Max, deep, intuitive, and unconditional, didn't echo in her relationship with David. Tears welled up in her eyes, the weight of the truth pressing down on her chest. She loved David, but not in the way that would sustain a lifetime together. It was a love born of gratitude and friendship, not the soul-deep bond she had always dreamed of. The rustling of leaves brought Anna back to the present. She glanced toward the path and saw her father approaching, his expression a mixture of concern and understanding. "Sweetheart," he said softly, stopping a few steps away. "David's getting worried. Is everything okay?" Anna hesitated, her voice catching in her throat. How could she explain what she was feeling? How could she articulate the doubts that had taken root in her heart? Her father knelt beside her, his eyes filled with the quiet wisdom of someone who had weathered his own storms. "You don't have to do anything you're not ready for," he said gently. "This day is about you. If something doesn't feel right, it's okay to take a step back." Anna's tears spilled over, and she reached for Max, burying her face in his fur. "I don't know if I can do this," she admitted, her voice muffled but heavy with emotion. "I thought I could, but it doesn't feel right." Her father rested a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Then listen to that feeling," he said. "You've always been strong, Anna, strong enough to make the hard choices, even when they scare you." As his words settled over her, Anna felt a spark of clarity. She looked at Max, who sat patiently, his unwavering gaze offering her the support she needed. He had always been her anchor, her protector, and now he was giving her the courage to follow her heart. "Dad," she said, her voice steadier now, "I need to talk to David." Her father nodded. "I'll let him know. Take your time." As he walked back toward the house, Anna stayed with Max a moment longer. She knelt beside him, wrapping her arms around his neck. "Thank you," she whispered, her tears soaking into his fur. "You're my best friend and you've never let me down. I don't know what I'd do without you." Max licked her cheek gently, his tail wagging faintly. It was as if he understood the weight of the decision she was about to make. When Anna returned to the venue, the atmosphere had shifted. Guests murmured softly among themselves, their smiles tinged with concern. David stood near the altar, his hands clasped in front of him, his expression a mixture of worry and confusion. Anna approached him slowly, her steps deliberate. Max walked beside her, his presence a silent reassurance. As she reached David, she took his hands in hers, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "David," she began, her voice trembling but firm, "you've been so patient and understanding through everything, and I care about you deeply, but I don't think I can do this. Not today." David's face fell, the pain in his eyes cutting Anna to her core, but he didn't pull away. Instead, he squeezed her hands gently. "You're sure?" he asked, his voice quiet. Anna nodded, her tears finally spilling over. "I'm so sorry. I thought I was ready, but I need to be honest with you and with myself. You deserve someone who's all in, someone who doesn't have any doubts." David took a deep breath, his expression softening. "I just want you to be happy, Anna," he said, "even if that means letting you go." The words, though kind, broke her heart, but she knew this was the right decision, for both of them. Max, sensing the weight of the moment, sat quietly at Anna's side. His presence was a steady reminder of the love and loyalty that had guided her through the hardest decision of her life. As the guests dispersed, Anna felt a sense of relief mingled with sorrow. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in months, she felt free to explore what truly made her happy. As the sun began to set, casting golden hues over the garden, Anna sat alone on the bench where she had sought clarity just hours before. The soft murmur of departing guests faded into the background, leaving her with the comforting presence of Max. The wedding that had been planned for months was over, not with the vows she had envisioned, but with a decision that, though painful, felt undeniably right. Max lay at her feet, his head resting on his paws. His watchful eyes followed her every move, his quiet companionship a balm for her frayed emotions. "You knew, didn't you?" Anna murmured, reaching down to stroke his fur. "You've always known." Her thoughts swirled as she replayed the events of the day. David's expression, first filled with confusion, then understanding, haunted her. Despite the heartache she had caused, his final words offered her a glimmer of peace. "I just want you to be happy." Anna knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. The weight of breaking a relationship, especially one so deeply woven into her life, was heavy. But Max's steadfast presence reminded her that she wasn't alone. He had been there for her through every challenge, and he wasn't about to leave now. The days that followed were bittersweet. Anna returned the wedding gifts with handwritten notes of gratitude, explaining her decision to those who had supported her. Friends and family reached out, some offering comfort and understanding, others questioning her choice. Through it all, Max remained her rock, his loyalty unwavering. One evening, as she sat on her porch watching the stars, Anna's father joined her, carrying 2 steaming mugs of tea. He handed one to her and settled into the chair beside her. "How are you holding up?" he asked, his voice gentle. Anna took a sip, the warmth of the tea grounding her. "It's hard," she admitted, "but I know I made the right decision." Her father nodded. "You've always had a strong heart, Anna, and you've always been true to yourself. That's not easy, especially when everyone expects you to go one way and you choose another." Anna glanced at Max, who lay stretched out on the porch beside her. "I wouldn't have had the courage if it weren't for him," she said, her voice soft. "He's always been there for me, even when I didn't realize I needed him." Her father smiled, his gaze following hers. "Max has a gift," he said. "He sees what's in your heart, even when you don't. That's rare." As the weeks turned into months, Anna found herself rediscovering parts of herself that had been lost in the rush to meet expectations. She spent more time outdoors, exploring trails with Max by her side. Their walks became a daily ritual, a time for reflection and healing. The bond between them, already strong, deepened even further. One crisp autumn morning, as they strolled through the woods near her home, Anna stopped to take in the beauty around her. The leaves, painted in vibrant shades of red and gold, crunched beneath her boots. Max trotted ahead, his tail wagging as he explored the path. "Max!" she called, her voice carrying on the breeze. He turned back, his ears perking up as he waited for her to catch up. "You've been my best friend for so long," she said, crouching to meet his gaze. "I don't know what I'd do without you." Max licked her hand, his affection a silent affirmation of their unbreakable bond. In that moment, Anna felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in months. The uncertainty of the future didn't feel so daunting with Max by her side. Meanwhile, David had reached out once, not to rekindle their relationship, but to offer closure. They met at a quiet cafe where they spoke openly about their feelings. David admitted that he too had felt doubts, but hadn't known how to voice them. Their conversation ended with mutual understanding, both agreeing that their split had been for the best. "It's strange," David said as they parted ways. "I always thought we'd be together forever. But now I see that forever doesn't always mean the same thing for both people." Anna nodded, her heart lighter for having had the conversation. "Thank you," she said, "for everything." As she walked away, she realized that letting go didn't have to mean losing everything. The love and respect they had shared would remain a part of her, even as she moved forward. Back home, Max greeted her at the door, his tail wagging furiously. Anna laughed, dropping to her knees to hug him tightly. "You're my forever," she whispered, her voice filled with gratitude, "and I'll always be yours." In the quiet comfort of her home, surrounded by the love of her loyal companion, Anna felt a renewed sense of hope. The path she had chosen was far from easy, but it was hers, and that made all the difference. Months passed, and the weight of Anna's decision gradually lifted. The life she had once envisioned as perfect, complete with a partner, a home, and a family, had transformed into something simpler yet more fulfilling. With Max by her side, she discovered a newfound clarity about what truly mattered. Her days were no longer filled with the pressure to meet societal expectations. Instead, they were filled with purpose and joy, driven by her connection with Max and her passion for helping others. Inspired by the bond they shared, Anna began volunteering at a local animal shelter. She spent her weekends walking dogs, organizing adoptions, and sharing her story with families looking to give animals a second chance. Max quickly became the shelter's unofficial mascot, his calm demeanor comforting nervous dogs and skeptical adopters alike. He was a natural, and his presence brought a warmth to the shelter that couldn't be replicated. People often asked about his story, and Anna would share it with pride, her voice filled with gratitude for the dog who had changed her life. One evening, after a long day at the shelter, Anna and Max sat on the porch of their home. The sunset painted the sky in hues of orange and pink, casting a soft glow over the meadow that stretched beyond their yard. Max lay beside her, his head resting on her lap as she ran her fingers through his fur. "You've always known what I needed, haven't you?" Anna said, her voice quiet but filled with affection. "Even when I didn't." Max's tail wagged gently, his eyes closing in contentment. In the stillness of the moment, Anna felt a profound sense of peace. The path she had taken, though difficult, had led her to a place of self-discovery and fulfillment. One day, as she walked through the shelter, a young girl approached her with hesitant steps. She held the leash of a shy, timid dog who cowered at her side. "Excuse me," the girl said softly, her eyes darting nervously. "How did you get your dog to trust you?" Anna knelt to meet the girl's gaze, her smile warm and reassuring. "It takes time," she said, "and patience. But the most important thing is love. If you show them you'll always be there, they'll start to believe it." The girl nodded, her expression softening as she looked at Max, who sat calmly beside Anna. "He seems really happy," she said. "He is," Anna replied, glancing at Max with a smile. "And so am I." As Anna's life continued, she carried the lessons Max had taught her, to trust her instincts, to value the bonds that truly mattered, and to embrace the unexpected paths life offered. While the world around her often seemed focused on what was conventional or expected, Anna found joy in carving her own path, guided by the unwavering loyalty of her best friend. Max, now a little grayer around the muzzle, remained her constant companion. Together, they built a life filled with love and meaning, one that honored the unique connection they shared. Their story became a testament to the power of trust and the extraordinary bond between humans and animals. One quiet evening, Anna stood in the garden, watching the stars as Max rested nearby. She thought back to her wedding day, to the moment he had refused to move, and smiled. It wasn't sadness she felt, it was gratitude. Max had given her the courage to listen to her heart, even when it meant making the hardest choice of her life. "Thank you, Max," she said softly, her voice carried by the gentle breeze. "For everything." And as the stars twinkled overhead, Anna knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. If this heartfelt story of love, loyalty, and second chances touched you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let's celebrate the incredible bonds that guide us toward our truest selves.